Awesome. Well, I'm super excited. Thanks so much, you guys, for joining in to the Viper and the Dove podcast, episode one. I'm super excited to have a good friend, Frank Berry from Tithely, COO of Tithely, in the house today.
Yeah.
Or I was going to call you Tithely. Oh my goodness, Frank.
I didn't wear my Tidely t-shirt, so you can't call me Tidely,
There
but
you go. There you go. How you doing, Frank?
life is good.
Wonderful.
Enjoying being home like everyone else during quarantine.
Yeah, yeah. How's it? So you're in San Diego, and
Yep.
so you're probably quarantining better than most, would be my guess.
I mean, it's not a bad place to live just in general. So, and I actually live kind of in an area of San Diego that's called Poway. So it's technically not San Diego, but it's the same essentially.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a good spot. And I have three boys, so they like to run around and keep us busy, so it's a little crazy. And I get to interact with people all day long like this.
Hmm.
So, it's not the same as in person, but at least I get some adult interaction throughout the day.
Exactly. That's hilarious. How old are your boys?
I have triplet boys. They're 8.
That's right.
Yeah,
Oh God, just like filled your quiver all at one, all in one
all,
go.
all three. Just yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're 8, going into third grade.
Wow,
In a whole different style, just like all of us, we get to do school from home
that's right.
uh, coming up here in basically a month. I mean, they start like they moved it back, so they start like first week of September.
Okay. Oh, they moved it back. It's like
Yeah,
old school where you start after Labor Day.
yeah. I mean, they're just trying to buy time to make a good decision and plan for all the um, coronavirus, like just like partitioning kids off and face masks and social distancing and
Right.
classroom setups and so just trying to have enough time for that. So
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Well, I want to give you a little bit of I don't know how much you got from like the little email I sent, but I wanted to start this podcast because I feel like over the last number of years, as I've run my businesses as a disciple, um, I've really struggled with this like dichotomy of being as shrewd as a viper and as innocent as a dove,
hmm,
hence the name of the podcast. And the idea is to kind of just talk about like what your experience has been. Selfishly, I kind of want to learn. I not kind of. I want to learn from you and just even like your experiences being a
yeah,
Christian, working with other Christians, doing business, and just kind of like I've even had private conversations with you before on like, hey, how do you like say no to
right,
certain
right,
things? And
yeah,
so, but if you could just kind of give a little bit of a background, a little bit of an origin story to kind of just who you are, how you've gotten to where you are,
yeah.
and then we can go from there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know how far back we want to go, but I was born and raised in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is always a fun fact. People are
Cool.
like, someone was born in Vegas? I don't understand that. So born out there, made my way to California, went to San Diego State University, got my degree in computer science, but became a Christian in college at the campus ministry at San Diego State. Um, and I actually met my wife at a junior college in Palm Springs. So like I started at junior college, then moved to San Diego, went to San Diego State. I met my wife at College of the Desert for any 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 COD alum out there.
Absolutely.
Um,
You found your
but we,
water in the desert.
yeah, 100%. And so we met out there. Both of us actually became Christians at San Diego State, and ended up getting married after college, and then went into the ministry as a like college or as a high school, like kind of junior high, high school, youth and family type of ministry. Back in the
Okay.
day, it was the teens,
Hmm.
and did that for about 4 or 5 years. And my wife and I, through lots of good chats and talking to buddies and getting advice, figured, okay, this wasn't the right path for us as a couple to kind
Hmm.
of go into full-time ministry. And she was working kind of in sales and I was in ministry, and we were
Hmm.
like, okay, is this going to be, are we going to do, we're either going to do this together, or we're going to, you know
Right.
husband is going to go find a secular job. And we've always been super active in our local church and served as small group leaders and worked with the teens. and all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, so I stepped out of ministry. I actually got a job at a company out here in San Diego called Quintera, which was a tech company making software for nonprofits,
Okay.
and they were starting up like a faith-based division. So I started
Cool.
working with like Charles Stanley and In Touch Ministries and Peacemakers Ministries and the Methodist Church and all kinds of like big kind of faith-based organizations.
Okay.
For a while, I bought another company in that space, bought Quintera, acquired Quintera, and then I ended up, between the two companies doing about 13 years total, so, doing kind of nonprofit tech, and I bounced around a bunch within that, larger company doing things from, directly working with customers, doing kind of implementation engagements and getting their software set up and helping
Hmm.
them with their websites and their email and their online fundraising and their CRM and getting all that stuff sorted out for them.
Right.
And then I went into product marketing and product management. And then I went into marketing and ran digital marketing for a few years. And then my last few years were in payments. So
Okay.
I spent about 3 years on our payments team, just doing kind of biz dev and things like that. So that kind of jumps into, we started Tidely about 5 years ago and, made the transition full time into Tidely and this is what I do now. So, Tidely is about 5 years old and we serve about 25,000 churches in 50 countries.
That's crazy.
And, uh, and yeah, it's a good time. We have about 120 employees. We're all remote, so people are out of their house just like this is normal for us.
Yeah.
COVID didn't really change kind of our work structure. We have no offices, so we've got people in Australia, Canada. We've got one dude in Chile. We've got another guy like in the Bahamas or something like that. But most of our folks are in the U.S., just spread out all over the place.
Okay. It's
And
almost like in order to work at Tidely, you have to like live in like a cool place.
yeah, right. Or travel or do something kind
Yeah.
of, yeah, yeah, totally.
That's so cool.
So yeah, just, running Tidely now. We've got, there's four of us that started it about 5 years ago. I'm our COO.
Hmm.
So just handle a lot of kind of day-to-day operational stuff, as well as, stay pretty involved on the sales and marketing side.
Right.
Uh, and yeah, we make tech for churches. So we started off as a giving company and we've added kind of all the ways to give via text or a mobile app or online, and then we added websites and church apps and full church kind of CRM, church management, and we've got actually a week from yesterday, we've got a big event where we're launching some new products,
That's right.
updates, which is going to be fun. So
Yeah, I've
yeah,
been seeing all your posts on social. I'm like, what's the news? So
yeah, totally. All my friends who don't even really care about like they're not in the church tech space. They're like, what is this? Like, what are you talking about? Can you tell me?
can you tell me
I'm like, nope,
exactly?
nope, can't tell you. I'd have to kill you.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. So okay, so you started with three other co-founders. You started Tidely about 5 years ago. Is that what you're
Mhm.
saying? Okay.
Sure. Mhm.
So are your partners other Christians? Are they, not necessarily religious? Or how did you guys meet each other? How did you guys become this team
Yeah.
to start this business?
I mean, three of the four are out of sort of different movements, and one, though spiritual, I don't know if he would categorize himself as a Christian, but
Hmm.
great dude nonetheless.
Right.
So one of them I knew from kind of my prior kind of work world, and the other two I just met over the years and connected kind of more deeply. The guy who had the original idea, Dean, um, him and his son is the one who built the first mobile app, and so I
Is
met
he the
his son.
guy with the accent? Because I've seen a lot of your videos.
Yeah, he's Australian. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean he's been in the U.S. for a long time, but he's originally from Australia, so still has the accent.
Okay. Okay.
And I think he's got the crocodile pants to go with it. So,
That's hilarious.
so yeah, so we just, again, one of the guys I've known for quite some time, connected with Dean and Barn, 6 years ago or so, 5.5 years ago, something like that. And we kind of all joined forces and said we think we can take this thing and make a go at it and turn it into a real company. And here we are 5 years later.
That's so cool. That's so
Yeah.
cool. Now, okay, so like I said, the premise of this show is, being as shrewd as a viper, innocent as a dove. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious to learn, and I'm sure, hopefully I'm still kind of figuring out who the audience is for this specific podcast. But I feel like for me, something that I've come across in our journey of building a business is, dealing with doing business in the world, right? But then also doing business inside of the church. And
Hmm.
so, and I think even in my own experience, um, I've had a lot of ups and downs in, not doing with people who are in the church. But I've also had ups and downs with people, doing
Yeah.
business inside the church.
Yeah.
Um, so I just kind of am curious to kind of hear some of your experiences of some things that you would, what's a story, I guess, of a time where you've done business outside of the church, and then as a Christian, like how did you handle yourself? How did you conduct yourself? Either it could have either been positive, or you can reflect now and say, "Huh, I could have done that a little bit better."
Hmm.
And then what would be an example of something inside the church that maybe you're like, "Man, I don't know, this was like amazing because I'm dealing with disciples or other Christians," um, or like, "Oh snap, that was not what I expected."
Yeah. Um, it's I'm not sure where to take all of that.
I know it's
So,
a lot.
like, I mean, there's all kinds of things, it, I think there's a different expectation fundamentally when you're dealing with Christians, and we're all called to the same standard. So,
Mhm.
like, I think that resets our expectations of one another. And maybe sometimes, that's not the right way to, like, approach it, but I think that's what it does, right? It resets our expectations, because all of us are like, well, we're called to follow Jesus, and we're called to use the scriptures to,
Mhm.
inform and guide our lives and our decisions, and all those things. So we have this new expectation on ourselves, and I think we project that onto other Christians, and we're not all in the same place. Like,
Mhm.
we're all very different people. We're all very different in our walks with God and where we're at that day in that interaction
That's
and all
right.
those things. So I think some of it comes down to just projecting your expectations on people. And then
Mhm.
in the church, those expectations go up. And so you're maybe let down more easily
Mhm.
because you've set the bar way higher for people than if you're working with people who you don't have that Christian expectation. You're not holding them to that standard in whatever way. It could be someone coming to fix the plumbing in my house, or
Right.
it could be someone, helping me paint. Like, it could be that kind of stuff, where if I have just somebody I found on Yelp and I looked at their ratings and I had them over. This happened yesterday, right? Like, we had
Mhm.
some plumbing issues, and I don't know how to fix plumbing. So I had some folks come over, they fixed it. It was great. Awesome. Whereas maybe if I had called up a buddy in the church, like, that interaction might be different. Your expectation might be different. Whereas these guys came, did it, barely talked to them, they were done, signed off, boom, they're out of here.
Mhm.
And I just think the expectation on Christians gets set higher. So there's
Is
more
that a
room.
good thing, or is that a
Well, it's good, but it's also sets you up for being let down maybe more quickly when people don't meet your expectations in that way. And it also then creates an awkward kind of environment,
right?
with that individual or that group of people or whatever it is, because, then what, how do you have that conversation?
We
Like,
still have the family reunions we gotta go to. We gotta see
yeah,
you on
like,
Sunday.
so, with maybe somebody I just hire off of Yelp, I can choose to not pay them or fire them if they're not doing a good job. And I'll do that pretty objectively, I
Mhm.
guess, right? No emotions attached, no anything really attached to that, other than, like, I'm paying you to do a job, and are you doing it, adequately well, right? Like,
Right.
and I think when you're working with, and it's usually other Christians that, you actually have a relationship with in somehow, right? Because
Mhm.
maybe they're in your local church and you're connected with them or whatever. So you're just bringing other stuff along with that. So I
Mhm.
think it's harder to have, I don't know, if you're hiring somebody and they're not performing, and they happen to be someone, and they're in your local church, and you have them over for dinner too. like that gets a little challenging, you know.
Yeah.
And it
No.
can be good and bad. It can be handled well. It can go awry. I mean, I'm no pro on any of this stuff. I'm just saying I think maybe I, you know, again, I wouldn't say that I'm a pro, but maybe the issue is that our expectations change, and there's more relational connectedness as part of that, which can be really, really good and amazing, and can
Mhm.
also create, if there's not the right level of performance, then that can create some interesting tension to work through.
Right.
Um,
I think like the benefit could be, as a Christian, and you have a common ground, and you have a common just like life standard.
yeah,
Let's say like you have so we've hired we did this we did because of COVID. We weren't able to access our studio for pretty much throughout the entire spring, the beginning of the
yeah,
summer, and so we had to figure out how to do production remotely. And so we did a lot of virtual graduation ceremonies and things like that, and so that like skyrocketed, and we ended up having um, I don't know, like we brought on, we were five of us, our five co-founders, and then we scaled to like 60 people in the matter of like a couple of weeks, which was
right,
insane and
yeah,
terrible, honestly. I mean, like we learned a lot, but and so what you do when you're trying to just scale really quickly is you just grab people. You're like, here, come here, do this job. And so we brought on a lot of my network, which are a lot of disciples. Um, and thank goodness, most of them did a great job. Like
yeah,
totally did a great job. Um, but I think there are a couple scenarios where I had to pull a person aside and say like, hey, there was a situation with just like a level of professionalism and how they interacted with a client.
hmm,
And I had to pull them aside and say, hey, here's a really great resource to increase your effectiveness in your communication with the client.
right,
And the response was kind of prideful. So, so it was like, oh snap, okay, now it's like D time. Like
yeah,
now it just kind of like transitioned into like this. Hey, like I'm not here to, you know, like you said, I think before, this, if it was someone else and, we didn't have this like personal relationship and things like that, I probably maybe even would have been a little more strong. But I think
mhm,
because of this dynamic, I was just like really loving and was like just trying to like be really encouraging,
right,
and then it didn't get the response I was looking for. And so just kind of had to like um kind of still have those same cultural elements of what we do at church, and said, okay, hey, like I don't know if you're feeling offended by what I said, or if I could have communicated or expressed that differently, but um this is what I'm hoping to communicate,
right.
and this is how I'm hoping you can receive it. It's not meant to offend you. It's not meant to embarrass you or any of those things. But we can do better here.
Yeah. I mean, I like at Tithely, you know, bringing it into like those super professional, right? This is far different than me sort of hiring somebody or having somebody help me with something or whatever. Like on the, again, the plumbing example, right? That's like one kind of case. You know, at Tithely, we probably have, um, you know, like I said, we're about 120 employees, and I don't know, there's 20 or so,
Mm-hmm.
give or take, that are all part of sort of our fellowship of churches,
Mm-hmm.
and good friends of my personal, like actual good friends of mine,
Mm-hmm.
as well as others that I know, but I don't know them super well personally.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, you're there. I think there's a spirit of Tylee is a company who is Christian in its roots and serving the church in terms of what we do. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of in our DNA. It's who we are. It's what everybody here is very passionate about. The mission behind what we do is a big reason why people love being here.
Right.
But we're also a company, and there's 120 people, and my job, um, you know, is to make sure that this company does well, and all the people who, you know, rely on Tidely for their paychecks and, you know, these
That's
kind of
right.
things. It like there's a lot of people, so um, everybody that comes to work here needs to know that like it's a professional place, and
Yep.
you know, hopefully because you're a Christian and because you have your own higher standards because of what Jesus calls us to, that's what you bring to work,
Hmm.
right? And you want to do your best. And so, in this setting, it's look, we have a management team, and most people don't report direct to me because I think it's better to not have that happen, and that way there's other people that they're reporting to from a manager perspective and things like that. So we try to do some stuff that make it a more objective, more like, hey,
Hmm.
this is a work environment, there's expectations of how we work and what we get done and all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
I think people who are following Jesus are just called to a higher standard, and that should reflect in who we are at work as well, right?
Hmm.
And kind of, I don't know, that like the quality and the professionalism and the care and the like going above and beyond and loving people and serving people, and we want that for all of our customers, and we want that for each other
Right.
inside. And I think, I mean, by and large, that's what happens. Like I think we see inside of Tidely, like people, Christians, working hard to be that, like to
Hmm.
be a light even at work and do the right thing and work things out and be the best they can be, because it's not about sort of them, or it's not about like them and at Tidely. It's like, no, I'm a Christian. It's like me reflecting Jesus at
Right.
work. um,
Totally.
and so we've overall it's been amazing, like in terms of hiring people in the church working at Tidely. I think it's been really good for us.
That's great. Well, I want to kind of transition a little bit and just kind of share a story. Because most of you guys probably don't. Well, maybe some of you know, but we put on this church conference, this quarantine church conference, as you know, Frank.
Yeah,
Um,
quarantine con.
Quarantine, yeah, exactly. Right at the beginning of like when everything was being shut down around the world, and all the churches were trying to figure out how to do church online, and I was watching, and I was just like stressed out because I was just looking at like the services, and I was like, oh no, Easter's in like 2 weeks. we gotta we gotta help somehow. So just God put it on my heart to like put this event on, and it came together really fast.
Yeah,
And I wanted it to have as great of an impact as possible, which meant just making it available for free for all of the attendees. I
yeah.
was hoping for maybe like 500 people to show up. We ended up having like over 13 or 1400 people, which just
Wow.
like blew our minds. And I remember reaching out, and so like Frank and you and I haven't like known each other for so long, like less than a year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we were actually talking about how we could, how St. Rock could potentially help with the San Diego church. But then with this conference, and honestly, like I was just like so embarrassed to ask you because I was
It was
just
so
like,
good though. You did the
oh
conference was awesome.
gosh, I'm so prideful. I was just so embarrassed to like, because like it's especially in the business world, and especially kind of knowing like those dynamics between like Christians, and sometimes we can have that like that expectation that you talked about, like we have the expectation of excellence, greater excellence from each other, but then sometimes there can also be like that entitlement on the other side, and of like, well, I'm your sister, why wouldn't you support us, or
Right,
something like that.
right, right.
And so I was like very sensitive to reaching out, but honestly, like you're just so generous and like gracious, and you guys like supported this event, which honestly just made took a lot of pressure off of me to foot the bill
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
stuff that we were doing. And so I just wanted to say a public big thank you again just for
yeah.
that. And
I hope you do it again. Keep
definitely.
it rocking. It was great. I mean, I got to see some of it. I didn't watch like every session, but it seemed like it was well attended, and the chat was, the chat stuff was off the
Yeah, it was
hook, and
popping.
yeah, so it was really good.
Yeah. It's crazy because it's interesting how like I feel like when obeying God really just opens a lot of doors,
Right.
because it was literally I can trace it back to that event that has really opened up a lot of doors. We're actually doing a lot more virtual events, and we've actually pivoted our business strongly in that direction.
Mm,
And so it's been kind of cool to just to see how God has opened up a lot of doors from that. So
yeah, and it's massive now. I mean, like sort of you guys going through building the internal muscle to do these events and do them well and understand all the logistics and complications and what works and what doesn't. Like
Yep.
now all these churches are trying to figure out similar stuff just with doing Sunday services, right?
That's right.
Like it's not identical, but it's very similar. And you can come alongside and help run different events, or like you said, these graduations, like totally a fit. But
Yep.
helping with Sunday services and all that kind of stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, most churches, like I do this show where I interview pastors like every Monday. We were doing it every day for 5 or 6 weeks, and most churches are just like struggling to figure it all out. And now we're 4 or 5 months into this whole thing, and so people have
Right.
learned a lot. But at the beginning, I don't know, 90% of churches were like, "How do I do this online thing?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So everyone is struggling to figure it out, and getting better and better. I mean, over
Hmm.
because every week they get to practice.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly. Well, and that's actually been something that we've done too is with originally why how we met and started speaking was St. Mark was reaching out and we're seeing if we could serve the San Diego church in some kind of
right,
way. And we ended up actually launching this cohort with about 7 churches. And part of it, what I realized, and actually it's something that I knew, but it was a great reminder on the one call we had. You were like, you need the team in order for all of these great concepts to come to life,
hmm,
and that's really been that we have kind of like 2 phases of the program. The first phase is just build the machine, and then the second phase is feed the machine.
hmm,
And so with all these churches or the handful of churches that we're working with, it's just been this like education, this like deep
right,
education process of like
yeah,
strengthening the internal team that they have at each of these churches. So
yeah. I mean, I think it's a big deal. Like, you know, it's hard to say. There's a lot of churches, but in my experience with the people that I've talked to over the years, like most churches are staffed for there's like the ministry kind of staff, the pastoral folks,
mhm,
the teaching pastors, the kids church people,
right,
like those kinds of things, and then maybe there's like some level of like admin, and depending on the size of the church, it's like that could be a bookkeeper, secretary,
right,
maybe there's an administrative kind of role, but it usually like stops there.
yep,
And churches aren't particularly well staffed for marketing and communications and
hmm,
doing digital ministry and doing things online. And it's not a skill set that a lot of churches like hire people to do, because they
yep,
hire people to do ministry, and
yep,
in ministry defined as like physically meeting with people, like doing
exactly,
doing Bible studies, doing teaching, doing in person like Sunday services or midweeks, or organizing small groups. Like it's all that kind of stuff, which is the church. Like like it makes total sense that that's where you start. But then if you're trying to do online ministry in this kind of environment, and as online gets bigger and bigger and more important and all these things over the years, but you don't have anybody that whose job is to do that,
that's right,
like it's going to be really hard. Like at Tithely, when we want something to go well, we bootstrap it for a little bit. We try,
yep,
right? We kind of pull somebody from here and there, and we're kind of like starting. But then if you want to kind of take it up and really do it excellently, like someone has to be responsible for it. Someone
yep,
has to own it, be responsible, be accountable, be the point person, and roll with it.
yep,
And then it grows from there, right? So
and
I
it
feel
can't
like
be a volunteer.
I
I
mean,
mean,
again, it can when you're kind of bootstrapping. I did an interview with an executive pastor on Monday, and I said, "How are you guys thinking about going back to church?"
mhm,
Right? Because we're still kind of all locked down, and you can't really meet and all this kind of stuff. So they have their own building. They're kind of preparing, and specifically, I was like, "What are your thoughts around physically meeting in person and continuing to do this online thing that you've learned how to do over the last 4 or 5 months?"
mhm,
And he's like, "Oh, well, we have a 9-person team already staffed that is doing all the prep work and will run and be responsible for the online component of church when we're back in the building."
wow,
that 9-person team is all volunteers.
Mhm.
But I was like, well, at least you have a 9-person team
That's
and
right.
you know who the team is.
Yes.
They're already working on it. They've bought all the gear they need. They have their
Yes.
plan. And as soon as it's like as soon as you're back in the building, this team will be like launched to do their thing,
That's
right? So
great.
like it is volunteers, but at least
Mhm.
they've got a plan, they've got a team, they're putting the energy behind it, and they see that they need that in order to do online and in person. They can't pull it off with probably the one AV person that they have on a
Right.
you
Yeah,
know.
exactly. Well, and I think that's exactly right. Like what we're seeing is, if you do have a number of volunteers, you have to, if you want to execute, you know, and have a great end product, so to speak, you do have to have, if they're all going to be volunteers, then you have to have a little, you have to have a proper team,
Right.
because what happens is like, oh, so and so has a great heart and they want to serve and they're passionate about it and they're excited about it, but then quickly the expectations. I mean, with COVID, the AV team was already probably at their like bandwidth, and
Right.
then all of church was like right in front of their faces, and so everyone's like, I need this, I need this, I need this. And it's like, well, wait, you've got to, you know either you need to increase the team, or you've got to like make it make sense for a person to justify spending a lot of time, uh putting out, creating all this stuff. So um yeah, it's all about sustainability. It's like, as long as it's sustainable,
Yeah.
then it's a good plan. So
Definitely.
well, let's see. I had just like one more question. What would be some advice that you would give to a, because I think I don't really know that many, in Denver here we have quite a few, you know business owners, in our church.
Yeah.
Obviously you've got like Optimal, and then Pactimo, and some folks who run like real estate businesses and things like that. But I'm kind of curious, like, what's some advice that you would give to, because you've done really well and you're kind of in like you would probably say like the middle of your career, I'd imagine.
I hope I'm still early.
Oh, okay, well,
I'm
great. Hey,
42. I'm
don't let
42.
me
So
don't let me age you.
I wanna live to like, the ripe old. My grandma passed away at 100. So
Wow,
she
you're
made
not
it to
even halfway.
I know, I'm not even halfway. I got a long time.
All right, you're still in the second quarter. All right, my bad. Well, okay, for those of us who are in our early parts of our career, what kind of advice would you give us, especially from like from a business, but also from a spiritual perspective?
Oh man, I'm probably terrible at giving advice. For me, I've always, in my own way, just tried to do and stay connected to things that I did. Like I was always so even when I worked for the church and I was youth ministry, I was always doing things on the computer. Like I was building websites. I was learning Flash back when Flash was a thing, and
Nice.
HTML and CSS and Java, because I got a computer science degree, but I never really like went into engineering. Like I never went that far,
Hmm.
but I was always interested in digital. So like I think just one piece of advice for anybody, just from my perspective and what I've seen work well for me just over the years, is like, if you have that thing that you're really into and you're kind of like personally motivated to learn and you have like a passion for it, even if it's not your job, find a way to do it. Like I was always building people's websites. I was always learning email marketing, and when social media was becoming a thing, like I got super into social media. Like I was
Yeah.
always into that stuff and personally just trying to find ways to just do it, whether that meant reading stuff or playing around making my own things, or doing it for somebody like as a side hustle. Like I was just always doing that, and I think that's personally served me well because everything has culminated in my school, professional, personal interest kind of world into Tithely. Like I'm
Mm,
literally, I wouldn't have dreamed this up, you know, back when I was 10 years old. But
hmm.
like if I were to dream up like some perfect, crazy, unique situation for me as a person, like this is it.
Yeah.
Like I work in tech, I serve the church, I helped start a company, I'm remote, I'm with my family, like things
Wow,
are going well. I still get to tinker, but we get to do it at scale. Like it's like everything that I could hope for in like a career, you
that's
know?
cool.
So I just think personal passion for what you want to do and just always, even if it's not your day-to-day job, find a way to do it on the
Mhm.
side, find a way to keep that moving and look for opportunities to bring that into your work life or what, you know what I'm saying? Like look
Yeah,
for those spots because I think that's what happened for me because it was always interesting. My career path kind of went in a direction that got more and more into those things.
that's cool. That's cool.
So, yeah.
So basically, like, say yes to different experiences, and I think even for a lot of young people, they're still, I don't really know what I want to do, or I'm still trying to figure it out. And
And you might not be doing what you want to do. That's
yeah,
why do it on the side.
yeah,
Like do things, yeah, experience things, try things. I probably if you asked me 10 years ago, 15 years ago, do you what are you really into? I'm not sure if I would have answered like tech.
hmm,
But by what I was spending my extra hours doing, it was clearly tech, right? Like it was clearly internet online based tech stuff. I'm just
hmm,
into it. And so that just kept growing and turned into this, you know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like so yeah, find the stuff you're into, tinker a lot, play, experience things and what you're into, do it on the side until it becomes something.
Okay, bonus question. I totally lied. I thought I had one question. I have one more.
Yeah.
Where do you want Ty Lee to be in the next 10 years?
World's number one church tech company.
Wow.
I mean,
Okay.
it's weird because every month, early days we'd be like, whoa, and then it was like, every 3 months you're like, wow, we never would have thought this, and then at year one you're like, holy cow, this is, and now year five. So I guess what I'm saying is like every month, and then it turned into 3 months, and then 6 months, like the vision for what Tyler could be totally changed,
Wow.
and so it went from oh, maybe we'll, serve a couple thousand churches and be this size of company into like what 25,000 church. I mean, we'll be
That's
at 30 by
crazy.
the end of the year, and like that's a 5 years ago we wouldn't have said that, but today, like I say it and I can see it. Like
Wow.
it could happen. Like it's there for us to go do.
Yeah.
And we have such like the team of people at Tithely, like the 120 some odd employees, like we have such good people and
Mm,
that are talented and really passionate about tech and serving churches and love to get on the phone, serve our customers, help them with their stuff, build cool things to help them do their jobs better. Like, so it's like a combination of like, we have all these amazing people that really love what they're doing and we're all headed in the same direction. Like everybody is behind like what we're building. Like people are so excited about our big kind of launch event next Tuesday. Like
that's
people
right.
they're jazzed about it because we've been working on some stuff for a while and everyone wants to like put it into the world, right? So like, yeah, world's number one church tech company. Like it's possible. It's there for us to grab.
I see it. I see it. Okay, you got to give us like a small little sneak peek. August 11th, right?
Yeah, it's Tuesday, August 11th, 10 a.m. And so we do a bunch of things for churches. So we do kind of giving and financials.
Hmm.
We do kind of the church management side. We do websites. We do church apps. So we're pushing out some I'd say new tools on the marketing and communications side of the house that
Okay.
churches are doing today, but we think can be done better and more cost. That's one thing at Tide that we try to have pricing that is very cost effective, very
Yeah.
affordable for any church, whether you're 10 people in a garage or you're a mega church that's got 15,000 people in seats on a Sunday.
Yeah.
We want to price ourselves so that anybody can afford the best tech. So we're pushing out some things that'll be great for the communicators. Also, some new things that are great for sort of payments, because payments and giving is our roots.
Right.
So making it easier to do some things there. And then a bunch of kind of updates in the middle to current current tech. So yeah,
This is
that's
gonna
not
be
really.
like your guys' is like WW. What is
Yeah,
Apple's? I'm
uh,
like, whoa!
we're
Is
gonna
you got
we're
software, you got hardware.
we're gonna try to do it. We're gonna try to do it quarterly if we can. Like do
Okay,
some kind of big announcement every quarter, um, just because we can. We have the team. We've got people that want to ship stuff. Our customers want it and need it, and I think pushing out some good stuff every quarter would be awesome. So
that's so cool.
that's our goal.
Well, congratulations ahead of time. I'm excited to see what you guys have. I think that there's a lot of room in the church world to. I mean, there's really only a couple. I think like maybe church front, in from a media perspective, and then pro church tools with Brady Shear, and so I think that there's just a huge space, and especially with millennials becoming young parents and things like that. Um, you've got a lot of Gen Zers who are starting to come to faith as well, and so
Yeah,
I think it's interesting to see the generational shift even in church, and so it's cool to see you guys on the forefront of all of that.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think our company is probably made up of 85, 90% like millennials or younger is
Nice.
my guess. If I were to go average age, like I'm old, I'm definitely old at Tidely. There's not many 40-year-olds. So average age at Tidely is probably in the like mid to high 20s.
Wow,
It's
that's cool.
it's cool. Yep.
Super cool. Well, Frank, thanks so much for joining us on the first episode of Viper and the Dove podcast. I'm so excited for
Yeah.
your guys' announcement next week. For all of our viewers, thank you so much for joining us. Go ahead and like and subscribe and comment one thing that you liked about this podcast. Tell us below if you're a Viper or if you're a Dove. We're excited to continue to roll these episodes out, and we'll keep you posted on some of the upcoming stuff we have coming out. So awesome. Thanks to you guys so much. Thank you, Frank, again. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.